as long as you're getting everything done, it doesn't matter if you do it in the first thing in the morning or in the evening or when that is. Like everybody can create their own kind of opportunity. I think we're seeing more of that day to day. Like they're kind of breaking down the old school mentality of what your day to day looks like. Going to business ownership for yourself, but not by yourself. There's
There it
several other
is.
people who have jumped off this cliff before you, and here's what they've seen. Right? You've had a chance to talk to them. Right? You talk to tons of people who are franchisees, and they told you all the things, the good, the bad, the ugly. Right? What keeps them up at night? You already know. Like they've already told you what to prepare for. So you just don't make those same mistakes. When I'm talking to people about going to business and building an empire, money talks, but wealth whispers.
Yo, 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 this is the Streetwise Podcast, where we help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant, which means I help people find, launch, and build their ideal franchise business. My main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready, let's go. All right, Streetwise Nation, we're talking to Whit Shepherd with FranDevCo. Whit, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, it is all good. Happy Wednesday to you. Your neighbor down here in the South, also in Texas. So it's always good with us Texas franchise guys unite, right?
Amen. Amen. What's the weather like in Waco today? You look out the window, what are you looking at?
Dude, cloudy, hot, humid, with a chance of rain, dude. Like summer's here. We're not even in summer yet. It's brutal. Where like you walk outside and your sunglasses fog up, right? So it's we're
and you see the hair is tied back today because if I go outside, it is instant afro. Yeah, you gotta work these curls well,
there you
man.
go. There you go.
Yeah. No, yeah, I tell people all the time, man, summer, you never know when it truly hits its apex, but you better believe come May, you're in it, man. You're in it.
That's it.
So buckle up. Buckle up. It's cool, man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on. So FranDevCo, what's new in the space? We'll talk backstory, but I'm really interested in, and I think the people listening are gonna want to hear about like what FranDevCo is, what your role within FranDevCo, and then what new is popping right now.
Absolutely. No, love it. So FranDevCo, I mean, obviously in our name, we're a development company. You know, I'll tell you, Matthew, really kind of look at ourselves, we kind of pivot a little bit. We really feel like we're more of a franchise education organization, right? And as I am the VP of development over here, and we've got, kind of what we call verticals of different brands that we have stacked. I oversee a certain stack of brands, but our goal is to educate potential franchisees, right, or candidates are coming through the process because, as you and I both know, I mean, you've been in business, you're a franchisee, you're on the other side too, as trying to find a good fit for a potential candidate or franchisee. The
That's right.
education process is so important. Of like, look, one thing I tell everybody, my commitment is that if you come into our system and you start to look at a brand with us, at the end of the day, if it's not a fit, whether it's a fit for us for you or you for us, you're going to leave better than when you came in, right? You're going to be more educated. You're going to know more. You're going to be in a better place that if you do find that right opportunity, you can make a great educated decision for you and your family. So that's kind of how I look at it every single day as I'm working with candidates and just making sure at the end of the day, this is your process. This is we know that this is probably the second largest decision next to getting married, is going into business.
Amen. Amen. No, it's cool. I resonate with that. I actually tell almost word for word whenever I hire somebody onto one of my teams. It's like I know that we will not be together forever. I would love to facilitate this relationship for as long as possible. Granted, it serves you and it serves me and it serves the organization. But my goal is when you leave, when we part ways, when that happens, I want you to be in a better space in your career, in your personal life than you were the day that I met you. So I think that's really important. I value that sentiment for sure. Anything that you guys like do specifically to facilitate that? Like anything that might be different from, you think franchise sales organization and FSO, they come on to help a business who turns to franchising to grow. They turn to an FSO to help them sell franchise locations, I mean, you might sometimes miss that education piece. So I'm interested in maybe how you guys actually activate that for candidates coming through your pipeline.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Because another way we look at this space a little bit differently, and it is for people are going to see this like they hear FSO. What does that mean, right? A franchise sales organization. I feel like a lot of the FSOs are built to eat, right? You bring a brand
Mm,
in and they sell as many territories and grow as fast as they possibly can. We look at it from, again, as a franchise development or educational organization. We're built to scale. I want somebody to be able to come in and they want to stack a single brand in an area, multiple areas around, or are they looking to diversify as they stack one brand that may be a reoccurring revenue service base, one brand that may be brick and mortar? Like, what are their goals at the end of the day? Like, what are they looking to do? Are they looking to grow out, or are you looking to grow in a single area and just grow up and stack on up and up? It's kind of like similar to what you guys have done. You've kind of
yeah, no
stacked some
doubt.
brands on top of each other in an area.
Yeah, no doubt. That almost takes it takes a lot of nuance because you've got people coming in that are different styles of investors. Do you find that certain industries are kind of popping more now than others? For example, like during COVID, I know fitness concepts kind of had a hard time, right? Because you couldn't go anywhere, but home service boomed. Now that the economy is a little wonky, people don't really know what's going on. How is that kind of adapted, in 2024 from
Yeah,
your seat?
for sure. Yeah. So as we look at the different brands that we're currently working with now, we've got a good mix of home service businesses.
Okay.
We have a good mix of health and wellness. Really not so much in the fitness space, but more on the wellness side, right? Something that's going to benefit somebody, whether it's an ailment or some type of disease or something like that. That's a benefit to them, and then some low cost food that we also have options in. So as we look at the brands we currently have 8 at the moment, and evaluating, we evaluate thousands every year, and it's sitting down. So, first and foremost, it's an education process with that potential. They already might be a franchise and trying to figure out how to grow, or they may be like, hey, this is a great idea. I feel like I could take this nationwide. How do I franchise this? So we had 2 different lanes there, but we work with them at minimum of a year before we even think about taking it to launch, right? Taking it out to the groups and saying, hey, this is a viable brand. We have all the support in place, all the systems are in place. It's been vetted, and it's ready to go now. So it's a year time frame, right? Sometimes longer than that, depending on the brand and kind of where they're at. Yeah, what we've seen, obviously, we know, like you mentioned, like home services. Those are not going anywhere. They're growing by the day. I think as we look at the overall kind of people's day to day, people are busy. They don't have time to come home and, whether it's, scoop their yard because they have animals, or, pressure washing or window cleaning, or, all those things that are out there. People don't have time for that anymore. They want to be able to call a company that is, that's branded, right? It's consistent. And that's what franchising is so great about. It's branding and consistency of, like, I know I can call Matthew tomorrow and I'm going to get the same response. If I'm already a customer, they're probably already going to just shoot me a text and say, hey, how can we help you today? It's like, it's very streamlined. And we look at the age group that's coming up, right? Millennials and so on and so forth. They're just like, I want it easy. I want to get on, push a button. It's done. I don't have to worry about it. They're not the days of they pick up the phone and they call 15 companies. It's like, who can I find online the quickest? Who has the easiest platform? And who's going to show up, get it done, and then have great follow up after that. So we look at that from the service side. On the low cost food, right? So we want to be, I'd say on our food stuff, we try and stay at least around $700,000 and under from an investment, right? And it's, like
Okay.
2 of the brands we have is Taste Buds Kitchen, which is like, if you've seen like a painting with the twist, or those different types of things where they can go in, have a glass of wine and paint, have a good time with their friends. It's the same exact thing, but with food. So you can go in and learn how to cook a specific meal, events and parties
Love
and
it.
so on and so forth. There's not crazy kitchen equipment and whatnot. So it does allow that opportunity in a small space. So you don't have a ton of money out on a brick and mortar lease, but you can get ramped up and going pretty quickly. Chai Time, which is bubble tea, which is one of our other ones that's really taken off. It's unique, right? It's one of those things. A lot of people don't realize how many people drink bubble tea every day. We heard a statistic the other day that bubble tea currently right now is surpassing Starbucks. Right? That's wild. I mean, this is wild to me. Like Starbucks, you think coffee? First thing I heard is like, oh, like Starbucks, but the bubble tea industry is surpassing Starbucks, which is crazy.
That's super interesting. Do you find that the avatar of the franchise investor themselves, is it different? Somebody who invests in a home service business, who invests in something like a Taste Bud Kitchen or something on the wellness side, is it a different person? Maybe do they have different characteristics, different financial backgrounds? Maybe walk me through why somebody might look at one type of brand and not another.
Absolutely. There are a little bit different avatars across some brands. I feel like the health and wellness side of it, they do have a tie to it in some way, shape, or form, right? Where they're super active
Okay.
in their life.
A little passion there.
Yeah, there's passion. Or they're like Beam, right? Sauna, one of our brands, was founded because Cynthia's daughter had an illness. She had a disease, right? And so that was the reason why it starts. A lot of people gravitate towards that. IV Nutrition is one of our other brands that, as you and I know, we're traveling a ton, right? So you're a high level executive, you're traveling, your immune system has to be at the best of the best at the peak. IV Nutrition helps with that, but also helps with people also going through cancer and some other things like that. So there's a lot of big like heartstrings pulling on some of these brands to where people really gravitate. It's like, you know what? I want to make a difference in my community, right? I want to be able to say, hey, we had X amount of people show up that had these illnesses and we were to help them, get these things back in their life. People are looking for that. So I think a lot of people on the health and wellness side are really gravitate towards like it's something that's happened in their life or somebody else's, or this is how they live, right? They're clean, they're healthy, they really attract to that type of lifestyle. On the food side, I think what people really like about that is it's a lot of these food, health, wellness are low employee headcount, right? So as it is a brick and
Okay.
mortar, smaller space, they don't have to have a ton of people working on the day to day and keeping up with them, right? As you look at home service, depending on what type of business it is and what you're looking to build, that's where you got some employees, on that side of it to where, okay, how many people do I have to oversee during the day? Where are they at? What's going on? What's the mix? I think a lot of people look at like home services from like the recession resistant standpoint, and being, they just love the space. They love the recurring revenue opportunities for a majority of them, right? So yeah, I would say the home services side, we probably see the most from your, like, as you said, like from an avatar perspective, we see all walks of people on the home
The
service side,
most
right?
variety probably on the home service. Yeah.
100%, 100%.
Oh, that's interesting. So management style, right? Like who you want to manage, how many people you want to manage. Financial capacity was another thing that I heard. Passion for the widget, and then just lifestyle and what you expect from the business. What goals do you want to achieve from kind of attaining this widget?
That word passion, it's something I learned a long time ago. It's great to have passion in what you do, but I always tell people like it's like I just don't know if I'm passionate about the business. And I always say, well, you got to think about what passion is uncontrollable emotion. So if you're going to make a
Mm,
decision in business, passion should not be one of those things where you're leaning into like this is uncontrollable, like how I feel. I think I would look at it a totally different direction, right? I hear that at times, like I just don't know if I'm passionate about it. It's like, well, if you're allowing passion to be the one that's out front, helping you make a decision, you got to step back a little bit and really think about long term. What's the big goal, right? Is it, my parents were entrepreneurs, and as we're growing up, we sold business before I came, to where I would take one over. But looking back on that, it's like, oh, I want to build a legacy, right? I want to pass something down. Well, if you built a business off of you, what are you really passing down, right? If you pull you out of the business, what's left, right? Well, how did Whit do
yeah,
this? How did Whit build that? How did he get to here? If Whit's not here anymore, then how do you know what to do? So you're really passing a
man.
legacy or passing a headache. That's where like when I got into franchise, I was like, somebody now can actually say, I'm going to pass the legacy down to if my kids want it, they got it, right? Because here it is. It's a, McDonald's has been around forever because it's a repeatable, trainable system and process, right? So it's like, hey, we do this every single day. Here's the support. There's, 150 other of these locations. Here you go, Matthew, here's a business we built and there's support behind it if I leave or not.
I'm so glad you made that distinction. I appreciate you for that so much. Yeah, I often explain when you talk about passion, I talk to young people. My background is coaching and teaching in the inner city. And so I've been around young people so much, so many hours. And so many of them, they don't know. And it translates into older individuals as well who've worked at their corporate job for their entire life, basically. And you hear people, oh, I just don't know what I'm passionate about. Or like you said, I don't know if I can find passion in painting or find passion in pest control. Passion to me, and I heard this, I can't remember who to even attribute it to, but passion is what makes you laugh, what makes you cry, what fuels you with anger and just wakes you up every day and gets you really excited. So very similar to the definition that you said. And I think people don't often know the difference between passion and purpose. And it's understanding the goals that you have for your life, understanding where you want to grow to, and then experiencing and processing through pain points and failures and learning through those failures along the way that help you get to your purpose. And so I often tell people it's not about the widget, but about what the widget can do to help you achieve your purpose. But I do agree that passion can play a valuable part in some of these businesses, especially if you're looking at one. I think child enrichment is one that it helps to be passionate about. Education. You might not necessarily be passionate about swimming, for example, but if you're passionate about educating youth and building community, there might be a concept there that might fit well for you. Just an example. I also, the story, Cynthia May, her story with her daughter, and I finally got her scheduled on here. That episode's coming soon, man, and I'm really excited. That's a beautiful, just a beautiful story on how to start a business.
What's going on, everybody? I hope you're liking the conversation this far. Please take a moment, give it a 5-star review. It really helps spread this out to as many people as possible. All right, let's get back to the episode.
I want to go back to you, and I want to talk about your journey through the franchising space. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you got your start in franchising at the Dwyer Group, now known as Neighborly. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. I think that says a lot about how long you've been in an industry when it's like, I've been I started at the Dwyer Group. People are just now getting in. It's like, what's the Dwyer Group? What is that? And then I was like, Neighborly. They know that's like saying,
oh, yeah.
Right? I was super fortunate. I was in the automotive industry before, working for Toyota Motor Corporation, traveling a ton, recently married. My wife and I were looking to, build the family, and fortunate enough, my wife got pregnant. We've got triplets that are, gosh, they'll be 13 years old here next week. And
wow.
So, yeah, man. I remember walking through my front door one night, and my son met me at the door, and it's like, looked like he had it's crazy to say, but like in his grew just a couple of inches and his facial expressions looked a little bit different. I was like, you know what? I am not ever going to walk through my front door again and miss something or feel like that I've missed my kid growing up. Right. Because one thing that I figured out a long, long time ago is watching my parents as entrepreneurs and building businesses that no matter how much money you make, how successful you are, you can't buy time, right? You can't get it.
Man,
Elon's working on it. Uncle Elon over here in Waco, if he figures
Uncle
it out,
Elon.
like you can't get time. I'm not willing to sacrifice that. And so I remember very, very vividly, our kids were in the NICU. I was going to visit them on lunch, and one of the nurses like, what are you doing here during lunch? You're always working. I was like, I took a couple of days off, just need to kind of back. She's like, it's like you're kind of bottom. It's like, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do next. And she was like, well, I think you'd be great at franchising, right? And I was like, all right, well, I'll have a conversation. You kind of see what that's like. I first thought was like everybody, McDonald's or something like that, like multi-million-dollar business deals. I'm like, I'm not at the point in my life to negotiate a multi-million-dollar business deal. But fast forward, I went down, met with the group there at Dwyer Group at the time, and it was a perfect fit. I mean, I got a chance to to come in. And the big change for me was that I could kind of take, what had happened to me from like a, time stealing standpoint, so on and so forth, and pass that through to people being able to leave corporate America. The interesting thing with Dwyer Group was that at that point in time, we did all majority conversion based businesses, right? So it was you had a plumbing company, you've been really successful for 5 years, but you're stuck at this level and you just can't get over it, right? You keep chipping away, nothing's changing, and that's where a franchise comes in and say, hey, let's convert your business into a franchise and help you put all these things in place to help you get to those next levels. So I got to talk and work with and actually put a ton of people in franchising that have built a business over 5-10 plus years.
Wow.
Covering those, like, there was some conversations where, people just like get really, really deep. And it's like, man, like I'm missing this, or I haven't been able to do this. And it's like, I'm just trying to make it happen, right? I'm just trying to provide for my family. And it's like, hey, man, hats off to you, but there's a better way to do it. There's an easier way to do it if you'll allow it. And that's the biggest thing, I think, is a lot of people's ego, and they feel like they give up, right? Oh, if I bring somebody else in or I change my name, I've given up, right? I've thrown the towel in. And I can tell you, I have still to this day, I left the Dwyer Group several years ago. I still have great friends that are franchisees like Whit. Like I'm seeing like they're building a brand new business. They're building a brand new house. They're on vacation. Like they're with their kids and like all this stuff. I'm like, that was awesome, right? I so many wives like, hey, thanks for giving my husband back. I was like, I didn't do anything. I just helped them through a process. And they found this and it made sense. And they just because you become a franchisee, right? We know this, all things don't go away. You don't slap a magnet on the side of the truck and I don't think everything's sunshine and roses. Because it's not. It's still a grind. It's still hard. It's still tough. You're going to have days where you're like, what in the heck did I do? And you're going to have days where you're like, man, this is the greatest thing ever. But it's that emotional roller coaster that you ride. But the benefit is that you're not in it by yourself, right? You got somebody you can pick up the phone and call another franchisee. You can call your franchise coach. You can probably call the founder, CEO. Like you get so many people to talk to, so you're not out there alone. That was that was the thing I loved about Dwyer Group, is seeing all the people that I helped. It's a great organization, guys. They're I think they're probably the 800-pound gorilla right now in the marketplace.
Yeah,
Still today. But yeah, it was. I always say, everyone's like, "Whit, how'd you get into franchise? Like, how can I get into it?" And I'm like, look, go to Neighborly, get your franchise education, and then if it makes sense to stay, by all means, go for it. But if you leave, you're going to have a ton of knowledge when you walk away.
And that's really cool. And just to reiterate on the story about your son, I had a moment like that very recently where, so my oldest, who's 6, he lost his first tooth when he was maybe 6 months old. He was climbing on something, fell, knocked out his front tooth, and it was gone. Wife and I freaked out, took him to the urgent care. By the time we got there, it was already gone. That was the most expensive trip expensive tooth ever. Tooth Fairy didn't make no money on that one. I'll tell you that. Tooth Fairy didn't get nothing on that one. Right. But so, his whole life, 6 years, he's been missing that front tooth. And, we've been building these businesses over the last, especially the last year, because we launched Groovy Hughes. And I also started as a franchise consultant with FranChoice, and then I'm building the Streetwise brand, and I'm doing the podcast, and I'm running around all over there. He's talking to me the other day, and I'm looking at him. The full grown-up tooth has grown in, and I knew it was coming, but I didn't catch it from when it first broke to now. It's there. And I'm looking at him, and for the first time, I'm having a conversation with him with 2 teeth in the front of his mouth. And I had to it hit me. Like I got so emotional in that moment. And it was just, on one hand, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that franchising and my dad for putting me in this position at 25 years old. And now I've been doing this for 9 years, that I have the opportunity to spend so much time. But that was a reminder that the last 3 months where I just have been running and gunning and not paying attention to, maybe some of these things that are actually important in my life. And maybe I do need to take a step back and reevaluate what's important. And I think we can get caught up in the grind that sometimes we miss that. So again, I appreciate you for bringing that up, because that just kind of hit me with the reflection point just now. So you started at Neighborly. You're at Neighborly for about for almost 5 years. But then you've been at multiple franchise companies since the Horsepower, where we met. We talked about that offline a little bit. And then now you're at FranDevCo. How have you grown as a person and as a franchise professional as you've kind of leveled up and transitioned from one franchise organization to the next? Like, how have you grown in this time?
Yeah, great question. I've been very fortunate to work with some amazing people. I remember when I was it was at Neighborly. I got a call from a well-respected person in franchising, Gary Finley. Calls me up and's like, "Hey, man, like I want you to come on board with me. And here's what we're doing. Here's what we're building. Here's what we're growing." And I was like, "Okay, just had triplets. All the things that are going on." He's like, "Dude, like this is going to be amazing." He goes, "But you kill what you eat." And I go, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Well, you're 1099. You're not W-2. I'm not paying you. So you basically own your own book of business." I'm like, talking to my wife, she's like, "You've lost your mind. Like you're going to leave." At that point in time, I was a VP at Neighborly. You're going to walk away from that to go over here, and you don't know like what tomorrow may hold. It's just something like I was look back on what Gary has been able to do. And I was like, you know what? I think he's on something. So that's where I jumped in with Gary. We built several brands, Duration One and Blue Frog and the Driveway Company, a lot of home service based brands. But I learned a ton from Gary, over many, many years, just like different businesses, how to kind of navigate through different things. So super fortunate there. We went through a private equity flip with Gary, and that's when I made the transition over to Horsepower Brands and those guys over there. Again, I've been in franchising now probably a little over 15 years, and people don't stay around in franchising as long by doing it the wrong way. And I've always said, like, I have no problem sleeping at night. I know that who I'm aligned with, the brands that we have are great brands. There's no issues whatsoever, and I can sleep. I don't have to worry about it. I'd invest into it myself if I wanted to. But yeah, spend some time with Horsepower guys. Great opportunity there as well. I mean, look at that, what they've built and grown over a short period of time. Like, it's just amazing to see kind of what they've done. As people are always knocking on the door, right? And when you're good at your craft, I think Sung and I probably for 2 years, he's like, "Dude, when are you going to come over and work with me?" I was like, "Man, it's just timing's off. And this one day, Cam was like, "Dude, I need a VP. Like, I want to bring you in. I want you to run some of these brands. I want you." I'm like, "All right, let's talk." So everything lined up, and here we are, man. I'm super excited. We got an amazing team. We got a young team, right? Sung's young. We got Allison that's there as our CDO, and she's a go-getter, right? So we move at a fast pace, but that's what I have to have. I can't be sitting there waiting on paint to dry. I got to be moving fast. Like, I need to be always going is the way I like it, right? Nonstop. So it's been amazing.
Okay. No, it's really interesting, man. And now I look at guys like you, been in this space for a while, and I agree. It's hard to stick around if you're not doing it the right way. Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building. Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure, and it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I know what it means to struggle. I know what it means to build a team. If you're ready to get off of zero, if you're ready to build something for yourself, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's get the conversation started. Don't wait until tomorrow to build your future. It starts today. Streetwise franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode. You hear a lot of guys, especially now, talk about responsible franchising, and it's mainly focused on the franchise development process, but I don't think it should necessarily be structured in a negative light. I think just the term responsible franchising, we should be as consultants, as development, as franchisees, we should be going into this situation and this relationship responsibly. How do you view the franchisee's role in responsible franchising, knowing that they're the ones that are taking the biggest risk relative to the investment being made?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a little baffled, Matthew, to tell you the truth. I mean, as you kind of think about that, it's like if you got to talk about being responsible in franchising, like why should you have to talk about that? That should be the case anyway, because again, 15 years in the industry here. I mean, I've done something right. I've always looked at it the right way. So I think again, as you look at the candidate and what they're looking to do, and like, for us, it's not about how many locations somebody's going to add. It's like what makes the most sense to the candidate, right? What is, first of all, what does the investment level look like for them? Want to make sure we're leaving plenty of money left on the table to build and grow those businesses when they launch them. So I think it's from a standpoint of aligning with the right brands, knowing that whatever it's going to be, especially like from the brick and mortar side, right? The most important thing there is locating real estate and then getting them open, right? And that's one thing as we've looked at our brands of like they're getting real estate locked in, they're opening in a timely manner, so these franchisees can start making money and getting a turnaround. But yeah, I think for us, it's being transparent, right? I mean, I tell people every single day, like when you go into validation, I want you to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, right? There's some days you're going to hear something where that franchisee just had a bad day and it's going to come through on the phone and you're probably going to be like, well, this makes no sense. I wouldn't buy this brand. I was like, then talk to them the next day. You're going to get a totally different person. I always love like, hey, tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. And my favorite question every time on a validation call is, what keeps you up at night, right? As a business owner or running a business, what keeps you up at night, right? And I think what they're always going to hear is, employees is number one, right? It's always employees. But I think if you tell these candidates and help them understand that the word semi-absentee is thrown around like a everyday household word, which I don't like at all, because as I talk to these candidates and I'm like, listen, Matthew, you've been a successful, CEO of a business and running that. Did you get there by being semi-absent, right? Were you only there part of the time to get to where you're at today, the success? No, you put in a ton, blood, sweat, and tears and hours into that to get there. Business is no different. The only thing that's different is that you got something you can follow, right? And somebody else has already done it. So they've taken like the guesswork out of it, so to speak. But there's still going to be days where it's tough. Like business is tough. And I think when you really kind of have those hard conversations, that's where that kind of, we'll say, responsible franchising comes in, right? Of making sure that the candidate's first, right? This is their process. This is their decision. At the end of the day, if we're a fit, we hopefully get a chance to award them an opportunity, right?
How do you know when a franchisee or a franchise candidate is not good for the system and we got to turn these guys away? Let's think like, obviously, if they don't have enough money to make the investment, they should be educated in, that process. Like, all right, let's go save up some money. Let's plan to now it's not the right time, but really mindset. And also on top of that, is it different per brand? Like, can somebody come into FranDevCo and look at your 8 different brands and be super open, but based on their mindset, they're catered to one brand over the other? Or I guess more so like, how do you know somebody's not going to be a good fit for your system? It's probably a real question I want to ask.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I mean, because not everybody gets awarded an opportunity. But the first thing for me that I see is that, as we always talk about systems and processes, right? Somebody that's coming through and they're continuously like falling off, right? They're not following the process. To me, pretty quickly is like that's probably going to be an issue down the road, or sometimes by the questions they ask, right? They may just not be ready to go into business yet, to be an entrepreneur. There's too much fear. There's other things that are in the way, time, or those type of things. You can kind of pick that out pretty quickly and say, you know what, now is just not the time for you to do this. Not, and I've told plenty of people that, and I've also had some people come back 2 years later, 5 years later, and become a franchisee. I think what's the most interesting thing out of 15 years, Matthew, is that there's franchisees that have come into a system where a lot of people said there is no way they're going to make it, right? Like the cards were stacked against them from day one, and they were the most successful franchisee in the complete system, right? There's franchisees that come in that were high-level executives. They were super well-funded. They said all the right things, and they were the worst franchisee in the system. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the drive, right? The drive, and we always like to talk about the why. What's your real why? Why doing this? That's where you see people making a difference, in a franchise system.
Love that, man. How do you speak into the team? And when I say team, I'm talking about the operation side of the franchisor, and then the franchisee side, guys and gals that are on the ground building in their local markets. When you have a group of franchisees in a particular system that are struggling, how do you, maybe, as if you can imagine, I'm sure you've been around long enough, you can probably think of a few brands that might fit this situation. And I want you to think of yourself as like a third party, non-biased. You're an advisor in this scenario. How do you speak to the team when it comes to a franchise system that is struggling? I think a lot of times fingers start getting pointed. There's a lot of negativity. Franchisees are quick to blame the franchisor, but franchisors are also going to be more so willing to protect themselves as well. So I'm curious, just because I'm new to the space, like there has to be some sort of resolution when these things start to happen before it goes into like legal ramifications, if you know what I mean. Like, have you seen things go well after like there starts to be conflict? And if so, man, maybe enlighten me a little bit.
For sure. I tell you, you said one thing that's the most important, and I'll tell you that's the as I mentioned Gary Finley in my partnership with him, the number one thing I learned from Gary in his 30 plus years in franchising is that there's going to be conflict with franchisees, right? It's going to happen. There's no way
It's
around
inevitable.
it, right? But there were so many times where a franchisee would call and they were just upset. This isn't going well, and they're pointing fingers back and forth, like you said. And Gary would say, "Hey, I got two questions for you. Do you want to be heard, or do you want resolution? Let me know which one. And if it's resolution, this is going to be a very simple conversation, right?" And there were times where I think when it comes to what I've seen brands that have struggled before, what turns that around is that the founder or whoever's overseeing that brand. I saw Gary personally get on an airplane and go visit every single franchisee that was struggling and sat across the table from him, was like, what do you need? What can I do to help? Right. And a lot of them are like, I need this, this, and this. Great. Some of them are like, I don't need anything, Gary. The fact you're sitting across my desk from me right now says it all. And they completely turn around. So it's the commitment of like, we tell people like, we're going to be in this with you. This is a partnership. People need to hold true to that because there's so many times where people, they feel like they're worker bee 503 and they've got no voice. I always like tell everybody like, I'd rather have quality franchisees over quantity, right? I want you to be able to have multiple locations in a marketplace, but you'll always have a voice. You'll always be heard. And if you want resolution, man, we're going to work great together. If you want to be heard and disrupt the system and just bark all the time, we're going to get you out, right? Because that's the other side. It's like, if you want to be heard, here's what's going to happen. We're going to find somebody to buy your location. We're going to get you out and you can go and figure out what else you want to do. But like, I can't help you if you're not willing to sit down at the table and figure out a resolution.
Man, that's good. That's really good. I feel like I personally needed to hear that, because you're out here, you're building your business, and you feel there's a lot of emotion and passion, like we talked about earlier, in what you're doing. Sometimes all you want to feel understood in your pain. You want the pain to be shared. And I think when the problem is when fingers start getting pointed, fences start to rise, and now both parties are playing an emotional game. And I like the way you said it. Gary Finley, that's a lot of wisdom right there. And Whit Shepherd, you're the conduit of it for the Streetwise stage, man. I appreciate that. Do you want resolution or do you want to be heard? Because I think at the end of the day, I would resonate immensely with the franchisee who was like, you know what? I'm good. The fact that you came out here and spoke to me in person means the world. And I'm sure there's a lot of other franchisees across the country that can resonate with that as well. Okay, here's something for you. You're knocking this out of the park, by the way. You're giving me a lot of good clips, a lot of good content. I appreciate that.
Love it.
Okay, so we've got franchise brands that are built on. You've got founders that have built the business and then turned to an organization like FranDevCo to help them franchise it out. They've been in for 15, 10 years. They've worked in multiple markets. Now they want to franchise. On the other side, you have franchise concepts that they have the verticals in place, they have the technology in place, they have the systems in place, and we create a brand, and now we sell franchises around the brand. Do you find that a certain franchisee is going to work better in one or the other? Is one system better than the other? For example, Mosquito Joe was a business before being bought by Kevin Wilson and Buzz Franchise Brands. They turned that into a franchise. Groovy Hughes, not the same sort of a setup. And so I'm living in both realms, but I'm curious from just a systemic kind of a space. Do you find that certain brands last longer? Is it common? Is one more common than the other? Yeah. What do you have to say in that? I'll kind of just leave that open to you to interpret how you want.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of that. I've been with a brand that's got some locations. They've got a good system. They're just trying to figure out how to. They've sold or awarded maybe 20, 30 or so locations. They have franchisees, but they're stuck. Right? How do I go? How do I grow? Where do I go from here? I've ran through all the friends, families, and we're stuck. Here we are. I've also been on the part where there's a brand that's really great and they haven't franchised. And we franchise, you got one location, right? So I would say there's definitely two types of people. You're more people that are like, hey, I'm willing to take a risk, are really great for like a startup type opportunity where they can put their flag in the ground. They get a lot of benefits of being kind of franchisee number 1 or number 10, where a more established brand system where somebody's like, okay, it's vetted. I feel confident going into that. It's going to be more streamlined of like, this is what we do and we don't waver from that. But yeah, I'd say for me, it goes back. And one thing we really focus on is the founder story, right? And these founders we have got some amazing stories and what they've been able to build and grow, I think is what really makes the stickiness of a brand of how well it's going to do and how many locations are going to open goes from that founding story, how involved they are in the brand and so forth. And we're fortunate we're like all of our founders are super involved in the brand. Like they're in it, man, 24/7. It's good to see it, but they got a big goal in mind, and they don't think about it as work. Just think about it as what they love to do.
No, it's cool. And I think personally, as a consultant, I feel more comfortable showing candidates brands that they might not have a lot of locations, but they have a strong founder in place. I know not all consultants, some consultants, they want to see a lot of locations that are open. And I also think that's important. I think that if it's less than 20, you need to do some extra due diligence and some extra validating. But if you have a strong founder in place with a great kind of story and a great why, and the numbers for what they're doing make sense, and you find that can be duplicated in your market, then there could be a good opportunity there. So I want to pivot. I mean, we were just on a launch call recently where you were leading the show, man. Tell me a little bit about the new brand that you guys have over there at FranDevCo. We'll give a few minutes to highlight that one because I think that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, man. Scoop Brothers is our newest home service brand that we brought. And I always tell people it's like Baskin Robbins, but different. It's not an ice cream deal, but this is a brand we're gonna have a blast with because the puns are so great. But it's pet waste removal, and I think people next to kids. I mean, you got dogs, right? I mean, and they're right now dogs are probably going to surpass the human population here pretty quickly. So, people don't realize. Again, as we talked earlier about, people are busy. Like you don't want to come up at the end of the day and go in the backyard and scoop poop so your kids can run around and not have to worry about falling in it. Somebody can come by and take care of that. As a service is great, but the most important thing is the health reason, right? It's a pretty serious health hazard if you don't take care of it, and it's a space that everybody uses it. Everybody has a dog. It's recession resistant, right? It doesn't matter if it's raining or if it's snowing or if it's hot or cold. Dogs aren't going to decide when they go and when they don't go. They're always going to go. So yeah, it's a great brand. It's got a great founding story. The founder, Daniel, was in construction, traveling all over the place, missing time with his family and kids, and kind of started doing this on the side. And next thing you know, is like, what? I think I can, this is actual business. And he's able to, I would say, walk away from the man, right? Where he's like, he was able to walk away from that type of job where sometimes we see a lot of people walking away from corporate America from like a white collar approach. He was on the blue collar side that was able to jump into business ownership, and here he is about 4 years later getting ready to franchise across the U.S.
Super cool, man. What did you guys have to see? So I'm assuming that you guys worked with him for some time before y'all actually launched him as a franchise within your system. What did y'all have to see? How did you kind of advise and help kind of guide him in that process from when he first came to you or you guys met to now that, I mean, at least you're launched in the franchise portfolio? I know you got consultants already across the country bringing leads and getting this thing going. So yeah, maybe explain that process to me a little bit.
You bet. So a brand has to be doing a minimum of $400,000 a year in sales for us to look at it, right? We walk them through a process of like, here's what you're going to need from if we decided day one we're a fit. Here's what this is going to look like. Here's your time commitment. Here's what the amount you're going to have to invest. So this is what you're bringing to the table. Then here's what we're bringing to the table. With Daniel, it was putting the people in place, hiring on support and kind of helping in the mindset of, hey, now that you've dedicated to building a brand, you got to step back and put somebody in place at your business, and it's going to run the day to day as you can focus on building and growing this franchise across the U.S. But some marketing was done, some rebranding and refreshing, getting all the collateral material put together, fine tuning some of the day to day in his actual business, and then bring in some outside partners from like a vehicle standpoint, software, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of moving pieces, man. It's not easy when you think about, starting from the ground up. It took us a little over a year working with Daniel before we franchised it. Daniel came to us from Alex Blair, which is the founder of Resto Pros. And Alex is starting a company called Be Rugged, and it's a home services portfolio. So he's got Resto Pros, now Scoop Brothers. There'll be several other home businesses, whether it's pressure washing or insulation or roofing or whatever that may be. He wants to add those to the portfolio. So he's building kind of a home service mecca is what he's after. So Alex had great success with Resto Pros. So we've already got that support and that system behind it. So that helped us with like Scoop is like, this is a viable brand that we want to be a part of.
Super interesting. So something on the call that I thought was interesting just because my background with Mosquito Joe, it's a very similar style of model, very heavy on route density, big branding push. You're going to get a lot of referrals and then it's recurring revenue. And the technician that you have going out to do the service is also a similar avatar. Did you guys ever figure out the name that these guys are going to be called? Is it the ninja or the butler? Which one are we going with? Because I like both.
I did. Yeah, we're still in a fight. It's funny. Every call we do that. I like Scoop Ninjas because they're in and out before you know it. They like Scoop Butlers because it's more of a kind of that service. But yeah, it's funny. We always joke about that. But they're actually called Scoop Butlers. I'm the one that kind of came in and was like, I like Scoop Ninja. So I kind of just renamed them. They're like,
okay.
Yeah, so they're butlers. I like ninjas. So yeah, we'll probably just agree to disagree on that. But it's we've already had a blast with this brand. It's a ton of fun.
Okay, so an avatar for somebody like that. I mean, it seems like something that could be a pretty solid starter business for somebody who was coming in, or maybe somebody who somebody wants to stack a brand. I feel like that would go really well with what I'm doing. Yep. At Mosquito Joe. I got the technicians that are already doing it. And something that was actually on the call that somebody mentioned was concern about the seasonality. I immediately disagreed with the question because dogs poop all year. I just remember the last winter at my house, I got 2 dogs. And when I wasn't out there cutting the grass and my kids weren't out running around because it was too cold, I went out there one day and there was more dog poop out there than I knew what to do with.
That's right.
So for somebody who struggles to generate revenue in the off season because mosquito population declines when it's under 50 degrees, seems like a very well suited stack on business. I mean, would you agree that that's kind of the Kennett starter pack or stack on? Is there somebody else that I'm missing?
Yeah, that executive that wants to be semi-involved, right? I like semi-involved versus semi-absentee, but somebody's going to stay at their current, corporate job that they have that are, don't have no reason to leave. It's a simple model because it is route based. It's like a paper route. And at any point in time during the day, I mean, to see what's going on, they can just pull up the app and see how many homes that the butlers have already hit, right? So it is a business where you can manage it very, very easily from afar. So it is one of those businesses where we can actually say it would work for a semi-involved owner too.
Good. Okay. And so this takes me to my last hard hitter before I let you go. I do want to let's talk about this real quick because I think we both can agree like the term semi-absentee creates the wrong mindset because it gets pitched as you don't have to be in the business really at all. And my first take is an owner can work in the business or the owner can work on the business, but they're still working the business. So whether you're in it doing the task or you're on it and you're managing your people, absentee is the concept of I can be absent. In Mosquito Joe, for example, I probably dedicate about 5 hours a week to this business, but I'm in year 9. My first year, I did 996 mosquito treatments and I did every single one except for the 1 week that I was on my honeymoon and my dad came and did those treatments.
Wow.
Now we do 997 treatments a month and I have not done a single one yet, right? Like who knows? I could go out there, but I haven't done one yet this year, right? But it's a difference. We've scaled the business, but even I hear it. I hear the semi-involved, and I do think that's a better terminology because it taps into a different perspective. It creates a different perspective for the candidate. What's realistic for somebody? I got a candidate who is he wants to build something for himself. He's gone back and forth with his wife on maybe one of them should leave their job and be in the business while the other one works, which I like that idea, but they've got a son, they want to build the family, and it doesn't make sense, but he can't stand not having something that he's building for himself. And so we're looking through all these opportunities. What does semi-involved actually look like for a potential franchise candidate? Like what can they actually expect?
Yeah, great question. I always tell them, the statement I love is I want you to be heads on, not hands on. Right.
Ooh.
So you're coming in that mentality of this business. I mean, there's at the start of this are going to be some times where you may have to jump in the truck and go out there and get in the ditch for sure. Right. That's entrepreneurship. Yeah. But I always tell everybody, like from a semi-involved standpoint, majority of these businesses, be prepared to dedicate at least 12 to 14 hours a week to the business. Okay. I always say if the phone was to ring at 1:30 on any given day of the week, could you pick it up and answer the phone and work no problem? Or if it's like, no, I'm tied up in a meeting or I can't answer the phone between 8 and 5. They're like, this isn't for you, right? You're going to struggle. It's going to be a nightmare. You're going to kick yourself for doing it. So I was like, that's why it's semi-involved. You have to be involved. If the phone rings, you got to be able to answer. You got to be able to solve a problem if you have to. But it also goes down to like, you got to get out of your own way, right? You got to find people, always be building your bench, hiring, recruiting. You when I'm talking to people, it's like, do you want a job or do you want a career? Right? If you want a career, I got an opportunity for you that's going to be amazing, right? I might give you some sweat equity in this thing as you help me grow and build it. But I want somebody to have some skin in the game to where I can say, hey, you're the face of the business when I can't be there, like all weight's on your shoulders, but I'm going to pay you, right? I'm going to compensate you for that very, very well. And you're going to see a pathway to either, you potentially becoming or taking over this business and buying it, or you becoming a franchisor or business owner of your own, right? So that's always the most important. It's like, hey, what do you really want to do, right? Do you see yourself just punching the clock every day? That's okay. But if you want something where like, hey, I want to be a franchisee, I want to be a business owner, man, let me put you in a process to help you get there. I think that's what's so important. It's funny. I was going to ask you earlier, I think what's got me really curious and I ask these questions now is that my kids are older now, but the conversations we have at the dinner table about business and all those type of things, like my kids get it. It's so interesting. Like when we start talking about business, like they know exactly what's going on because we live it. I'm always just curious of like younger kids, like does your 6-year-olds, you like, I think back when I was a kid, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like firefighter or a police officer or whatever that is. like now these younger kids, like, well, I want to be a business owner. Like I want to
Yeah.
do business with you. So I'm just curious, like what that looks like because it's so funny. My wife's like, hey, are you guys going to continue living here when you go to college, right? I'm like, oh yeah, right now they think they're just going to stay here. We know they'll probably leave, but my son was like, yeah, school's not my thing, and I just said, hey, I get it. We'll support you in whatever you want. I was like, but guys, like do me a favor, don't go to college and get a business degree, right? And my wife looks at me. I thought she was gonna fall out of her chair, and she's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "Well, think about this. Somebody goes to get a business degree. They're going to learn from professors. Never run a business a day in their life, right? You're learning business out of a book. If you want to get a business degree, go start a business and figure it out. The school of hard knocks, right? Because that's the way to build and grow a business, or invest into a franchise. But it's where I'm getting at here is that, man, we're seeing so many young franchisees come in of like, hey, they just graduated college, or looking out there at what's available. And you know what? I'll bet on myself every day, and are becoming a franchisee. It's like we know that millennials, they're going to come and apply for a job. What job do they want day one? They want to be the owner, right? I want to sit at the top. I want to make my schedule to where I come in, certain times. That's why business ownership, I think, has been really guided towards the younger crowd now. They're really kind of looking at, you know what? I can invest X amount of money in this and get this up and going. Here's what the opportunity looks like. And we're seeing a ton of young franchisees, which I love. What made me think about that is when you're kind of talking about you're a teacher and a coach, and the kind of like kids and in the community, whatnot. We're just seeing a ton of that coming forward.
No, I think that's you hit it right on the head, man. And thinking about my kids, we send them to they go to a hybrid school, and so they go partial through the week, and then they're technically homeschooled the other portion of the week. They're still very young, and so the curriculum is super easy. We rock through it, and then we play after that. But having my sons, my daughter, every once in a while, she's still a baby, but just be present and be around, and they see me engage with the technicians. They've seen me speak in front of a room, holding the microphone and giving a 10, 15-minute presentation in front of 100 people about my business and what I do as a franchise consultant. And they've seen the level up. I mean, my middle son, Judah, 3, I mean, he can verbatim say my podcast intro just off the cuff. He says it better than I do. And it's so cute, but it's also very exciting and encouraging, because you think of like these high level athletes, a lot of them had to go to homeschool because they were doing these high level sports, and they had to get their school supplemented in some other way. Child actors, similar, they had to get their education some other way. And when I was growing up, homeschool kids were like, I mean, no offense, it was hard for a homeschool kid, right? Like socially, there wasn't a lot of things to engage them. But today, that's just not really the case. There's so many co-ops, and there's so much opportunity to get them socialized and get them educated with other kids that are doing the same thing just because of technology. And my kids love it. They see a Mosquito Joe truck and they're excited. My kids are not yet embarrassed when I pull up in the big Groovy van or Mosquito Joe, one of my Mosquito Joe vehicles, to pick them up from school. They're like, man, Roman, that's your dad driving that truck. They get really excited for it. And so my big push, especially because of my background in coaching and in education, is to plant the seed for students who are looking at college, or they're looking to figure out what to do. Maybe their parents have saved up a little bit of money that they could send them to college, but they also could take out a student loan. Maybe you look at investing into a franchise just because of my experience and what my dad did for me. At 25, he retired from Apple Computer, invested in Mosquito Joe, and put me in charge of it. And at the time, I was considering going to get my MBA, but I got a job in South Dallas teaching and coaching, and I didn't register for classes. And so I was there for 2 years before my dad put me in Mosquito Joe. And so many opportunities have come. I mean, I'm talking to you. I've got big things in the works right now, man. And it's a grind every single day. And some days I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but other days I pray that more people can live and experience what I get to do and get out of the trap that is, the general consensus on how we're supposed to quote unquote live our lives. So no, I'm glad you asked me that because I'm
Yeah,
super passionate about it. And I
thank-
think the opportunity is really exciting for my kids, but also young people moving forward for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, the other side is the trade route, right? I mean, I think we look, I mean, being in service-based businesses, like the days of like having the opportunities in the trades is starting to shrink, right? And I don't know if that's coming from the parents of like, hey, go get a 4-year college degree and you got to have this, and this to be successful. Instead of having that conversation, like I'm trying to force you into this and you're going to get out and you're going to be several $100,000 in debt and going, nobody's banging on the door to hire me versus, hey, we'll pay for you to go to a trade college. We'll get out and you'll guaranteed start at 75 to $100,000. And then you can only go up from there. So I don't think the conversations are being held correctly this day and time. And I think you and I were both fortunate, like growing up with a family of entrepreneurs, to where that's all there was business, right? It was, I remember when I was, my dad started with a small dealer's license, and so we keep like 3 or 4 cars at the house back in the day. I remember getting home from elementary school, I'd check the answer machine, I'd listen to them, I'd write down the numbers, I'd call them and say, hey, we're available now if you want to come take a look at this car. These people show up. I'm like 9 or 10 years old, like showing this car. Like, your parents home? I was like, no, my dad will be home at 4:30. He worked for the government. My dad will be here at 4:30. They get there about 4:00. It's like, you guys we'll talk about it. We'll walk around. When he gets here, you guys can go drive it. And if you decide to buy it, we do paperwork at the kitchen counter. And then my dad would hand me $100 bill, right? So that was our deal. If I sold $100, it's like, this is the greatest thing ever. But like, that was kind of my kind of start in entrepreneurship was that. It's just it's the hustle, right? I took the initiative. I had a sister that had no interest in doing that whatsoever, right? But for me, I loved it. It was a ton of fun to be able to do that. And it's kind of bled over to the career I've been in now for so long. I enjoy it. It's like, are there some bad days, like you said, for sure, but the good days far outweigh the bad days in the franchise world for sure.
Yeah, I think it's for me, just to put a caveat to it, it's the lifestyle of, yeah, you said earlier, it's a roller coaster of emotions, but the lifestyle that I get to lead. I mean, before hopping on here, I went to the gym this morning, and then I made breakfast for my kids while my wife could do her workout class, and I got this episode. I'll make some calls today to some candidates, and we got my general manager. I'm going to schedule to talk to him and make sure he's got everything going on here. But it's the lifestyle to where I truly have freedom in how I get to create my day. Does that mean I miss out on a guy's trip every once in a while because a key player might take another job or get promoted in their life somewhere else? We're going through that right now.
Yeah.
That happens, right? Is that fun? Not necessarily, but it's a part of the game. And if I can live the lifestyle that I want, I'm going to make sacrifices one way or the other. But I truly believe in what I'm building here and the opportunity that franchise ownership provides. But man, so this is my last official question for you, man. This has been a lot of fun. When coaching somebody to get off of zero and take the leap of faith and believing in themselves, whether they're afraid, whether they don't really know what direction to go, and how do you coach somebody up to have faith in themselves and take that first step off of zero?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll tell you, that has to start from that first introduction to where you're actually, I'm focused more on building a relationship with everybody than I do probably about the brand at the start. I want to really get to know them, who they are, they're married, their kids, what are they involved in, what's, what do they like to do for fun, what are their hobbies. Like, these are the conversations I'm having early on, and like and then diving deeper in those tough conversations, like, where's the pain, right? Not everybody has pain that to invest in the business. Some people are looking for it from just from a wealth standpoint, right? Looking to invest money as a vehicle. But there's some people that's actually true pain point. Like, what is it? Like, what is it that's driving you? Finding that out and making sure that we keep that at top of mind. So when it gets to that point, I don't care who you are. And I always tell everybody this, like, when it comes time to become a franchisee and you execute an agreement and you wire a sizable amount of money to that franchisor, if you're not scared and your stomach's in a knot, then I'm scared for you. We've got a problem. There's a lot. You're right. At that time, there's so many times in that conversation where they're like they're getting ready to well, I don't know if this is the right decision. I need to really think about this. I can go back and go, hey, you remember you're doing this because you missed your kids, baseball game last year because you're traveling for work, and you're missing all that. You don't want to have to do that, or health reasons, right? Or you're tired of, I always love, are you busy being busy or busy making money? Which one is it, right? Because a lot of people are like, I'm busy like 8 hours a day and they're just doing all this stuff. Like, when you look back on that, what did you really do? Was it just return a ton of emails and jump on a bunch of phone calls? Like, you really, at the end of the day, you're like, I really didn't solve a ton. It was more busy work. I want to focus more on like, what can I do that's going to make a difference in my life or somebody else's, is how I want to build out my day, right? Like you said, it's like everybody gets stuck in the old school mentality of, you got to work 8 to 5. You got to come in, you got to do this from this time and this time. It's like, as long as you're getting everything done, it doesn't matter if you do it in the first thing in the morning or in the evening or when that is. Like, everybody can create their own kind of opportunity. I think we're seeing more of that day to day. Like, they're kind of breaking down the old school mentality of what your day to day looks like, right? So yeah, I always like to tie it back to why they're doing this in the first place. Letting them know that hey, here's the great thing is that you're going to business ownership for yourself, but not by yourself. There's several other people who have jumped off this cliff before you, and here's what they've seen. Right? You've had a chance to talk to them. Right? You talk to tons of people who are franchisees, and they told you all the things: the good, the bad, the ugly. Right? What keeps them up at night, like we talked about earlier. You already know. Like, they've already told you what to prepare for. So you just don't make those same mistakes. And at the end of this, it's that you're gonna reap what you sow, right?
Beautiful stuff, man. Beautiful stuff.
The best thing that I can, everybody always talks about. You've heard the statement for time and time again. But when I'm talking to people about going to business and building an empire, I was like, everybody's always heard the statement, money talks and BS walks. But I've taken a different twist to that. Money talks, but wealth whispers. Right.
Hey.
So that's what I want to tell people who are going into business. Like, you're looking to build an empire, always think in the back of your mind, money talks, wealth whispers, because that's where you want to be. When you reach that point of success, that's it. That's my belief.
Love it, man. Love it. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I know that if people wanted to reach out to you directly, you're on LinkedIn. If anybody's interested that's listening to any of the brands that FranDevCo has, want to learn more about any of that we talked about, reach out to me. More than happy to connect you to the team. Golly, like, subscribe, share this episode with somebody. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace. All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hey, if this episode added any value to your life at all, please like it, share it, give me a 5-star review. It's the only way that this show is going to gain traction and help more people achieve their dreams. If you're ready to start your franchise journey, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's set up a time to talk. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.